I lived in a Western Tibetan Buddhist monastery for a while where I came across many contradictions in my opinion. Few examples: eating more than 2 meals a day, eating cake and candy, etc., praying to Ganesh, Ganapati, many superstitions, also lack of meditation practice. Do you see some of these examples also in the Theravada tradition? I think this is a really good example of what I was explaining before as far as the difference between Theravada, Tibetan, whatever you want to call it, Western. There isn't one. All of those things that you described could have taken place in any of thousands, maybe that's hundreds, probably thousands, of Theravada Buddhist monasteries. Thousands, it's got to be thousands. Eating more than 2 meals a day, check. Eating cake and candy, I assume you mean in the evening, check. Praying to Ganesha, check. Many superstitions, check. Lack of meditation practice, check. The tradition is not going to save you. Calling yourself Tibetan Buddhist, calling yourself Theravada Buddhist, calling yourself Thai Buddhist, Cambodian Buddhist, Chinese Buddhist, Pure Land Buddhist, whatever. It all depends on the teacher and whether they are teaching what is of truly of benefit, which is truly of ultimate importance and ultimate significance and ultimately real, that they teach the ultimate truth and teach the realization of what is ultimately true. Which is, as we understand it, the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path which leads to the cessation of suffering. If they are able to explain these things, practice them themselves, and are able to teach you how to practice them yourself, then that is something you should follow. But your very simple question, yes, these examples also exist in what we call the Theravada tradition. With the qualifier that what we mean, you have to be careful because it's actually mixing two things. Western Tibetan Buddhist monastery and Theravada are not on the same level. Theravada means the doctrine of the elders, a specific group of elders who we understand are responsible for what we call the Theravada commentaries, which are explanations of the Pali Canon, which we understand to be the Buddhist teachings. You won't find anything in there in regards to eating more than 2 meals a day, eating cake and candy in the evening. If you eat in the morning, it's not, I don't see the problem. Or if you're a lay person and you eat cake and candy in the evening, then there's still no problem. But you won't see anything about praying about any of this. So in the Theravada tradition, you won't see any of that. But in countries that claim to be following the Theravada tradition, you will find problems like that. Now, in various Tibetan traditions that existed in Tibet, or exist in what is now called Tibetan Buddhism, in many of those traditions, there is similar strict adherence to monastic discipline. And so in those traditions, you also wouldn't find these things. So what I'm talking about, these Theravada monasteries, I'm actually referring to Thai monasteries, Sri Lankan monasteries, Cambodian monasteries, Burmese monasteries, the monasteries that claim to be following the Theravada, but in fact are not. In these monasteries, you will find all of these things and far, far worse. You will find horrible things going on. There are cases of child abuse. There are lots of horrible things that go on, and kind of horrific when you think about it. But better that we know about it, better that we're clear and we admit to these things instead of pretending it doesn't exist and hiding it away like we see in, for example, the Catholic Church, because in the end it comes out and causes horrible misunderstanding of the core teachings. People start to think that Buddhists approve of these sort of things, not simply eating in the evening, but doing all sorts of bad things, gambling, sexuality. I mean, there was this article I read about a Buddhist dating service, for example, and people begin to think that that's what we approve of that. If we don't speak out and say this is wrong, this is not appropriate for a Buddhist monastic to date other Buddhist monastics, for example, or child abuse, and all sorts of unpleasant things.